Hi, I'm your Scream Queen Poppy and welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a film called The Platform, which is also known as El Hoyo in Spanish, which means the hole. This is a Spanish film that came out in 2019. It's 94 minutes long and it is rated 18, so just an advisory, it is got some adult themes. So some trigger warnings for this film include injury detail, violence, threats, there are mentions of SA, and also cannibalism. So a nice short and sweet summary for this film. In the future, prisoners are housed in a vertical cell and they watch as the inmates on the upper cells are fed while the ones below starve. This film was written by David De Sola and Pedro Rivero, and this film was directed by, and please bear with me here, Galder Gaztelu Urrutia? I'm really sorry. And the box office for this film was about $1.1 million. So let's get into the plot of this film. We follow main character Goreng, who wakes on cell level 48. We're introduced to his cellmate Trimagasi, who explains that they are in a tower-style prison. Once a day, a platform carrying a huge array of food, a full feast, arrives on each level. It starts at level 0 and works its way down. The platform will stop for 2 minutes on every level, and you can eat as much as you want while the platform is on your floor, but as soon as it starts moving down, you cannot keep any of the food. If you do keep any of the food, it will result in really bad temperatures in the cell, so either really hot or really cold until you throw whatever it is you took back or perish. So very early on, you kind of are made aware that obviously the lower level you're on is the less food that's still going to be left by the time the platform reaches your floor. Obviously the people at the top are very likely to gorge, leaving the people at the bottom to starve. Every month, prisoners are randomly assigned to a new level, so at the end of the month, gas will come into their rooms and they will fall asleep, and when they wake up the next morning they'll be on an entirely different level, which could be a lot better or it could be a lot worse. Trimagasi reveals that his lowest level so far has been 132. He does admit that him and his former cellmate had to cannibalise someone who had fallen onto their cell and perished, so they made use of his flesh. He also explains that there's kind of this hierarchy system among the prisoners. So for example, they're on level 48, therefore the people below them on level 49 are dead, they're filth, they're lower than them. He also makes Gurren aware that he knows 47 above them think exactly the same about them, that they are below 47. He just says that's the way it works. He even goes as far as to spit into the food that then goes down to 49. Another notable point of this film is about a prisoner called Miharu. She rides down the platform every month looking for her child. Just something to kind of note. While we're talking about kind of relevant plot points, another plot point is that each prisoner is given one item to bring into the prison. For example, Goreng brings his book. Goreng also is not a prisoner here. He reveals that he's actually volunteered to spend 6 months in the pit in exchange for a diploma. Meanwhile, Trimagasi explains that he's serving a year for, I guess, what we would call manslaughter. He talks about how he'd accidentally resulted in the death of someone and that's what he was serving his time for. He also goes on to explain, when asked about his one item, he goes into long detailed stories. That's a very Trimagasi thing that he does, is these frequent long ramblings. But this time, at the end of his rambling, he reveals that his one item is a very sharp knife. Within the first month, Goreng and Trimagasi become fast friends while they're still living on level 48. During this time, Goreng reads his book to Trimagasi regales him with stories, and they even do naked yoga together, so good friends. At the end of the month, the room fills with gas and they fall asleep. When they wake up, to their horror, they find that they've been put on level 171. And when I say they woke up, what I meant to say was Trimagasi woke up, panicked, and knowing that the potential of food reaching all the way down to 171 was very minimal. So knowing this, he tied Goreng up in his sleep. Once he wakes up, he explains that his plan is to eat Goreng. Not all at once, he's not going to kill him. He's going to fast for a week. He can manage that, he can fast for a week. But he explains that they'll get hungry and that the fact is he doesn't think any food will reach them. Of course, if it does, he won't have to resort to it, but it's almost like he's trying to prove a point to Goreng. And don't worry, he says, I won't let you starve, implying he was planning on feeding Gurung his own flesh. So, you know, we've got some really kind of dark themes already here. We're not even that far into the film. He also keeps calling Gurung his little snail, like an escargot, claiming that he would taste better given the fasting because they have to fast snails. And also, like, not a massively prevalent plot point, but when they go into the prison, they're all asked what's their one favourite food, and that will be part of the buffet. And Gurung's Gurung's was escargot. On day 7, day after day of the platform reaching them completely barren of food, Trimagasi turns to Gurung and says, well, it's time, my snail. And he does start cooking away at our lovely Gurung. I can't remember if this goes on for days, but he goes through a lot, bless him. A short time after, we have Miharu again, who's making her monthly journey down to the bottom of the pit in search of her child. She sees what Trimagasi is doing and manages to intervene, kind of pulling him off and freeing Gurung. And in a fit of rage, Gurung kills Trimagasi. However, obviously, this is very traumatic for Gurung, and he starts being haunted by hallucinations of Trimagasi, who continues to taunt him, belittle him, and just you know, the little devil on his shoulder. Month 3, Gurung awakes on level 33 with a new cellmate, and we're introduced to Imaguri. I might be pronouncing that wrong, so I do apologise. And she's there with her dog, little sausage dog, itsy bitsy. She claims to know him and actually reveals that she was the woman working in administration who had interviewed him to apply for this position. She reveals that she's recently been diagnosed with a terminal form of cancer, so has also decided to volunteer for this experience, and her one item is her dog. She explains that food-wise, she knows they're quite lucky to be on level 33, so she won't take advantage. She will eat one day and the dog will eat the next day, and they'll split the rations. She portions up 2 plates for the floor below, and as the platform goes down, she tells them every day, please eat what I've portioned for you, portion something for the people below you, let's try and make the food reach as low as we can. Obviously, they've been starving and they're not going to listen to her, and this goes on for days and days and days until Gurung gets sick of it and he threatens to do something not very pleasant to the food. One day, Miharu arrives for her monthly visit, and she's badly injured. They nurse her back to health on their level, but the next day, Gurung awakes to a horrible scene where Miharu has killed and partially eaten the dog. After Miharu leaves, Gurung explains to Imaguri about Miharu's child that's somewhere in the prison. She is obviously sad and bitter about what's happened, I would be too, and kind of angrily explains there are no children in the pit. Miharu would come in alone. But what this kind of insinuates, which is kind of not a really prevalent plot point, but is obviously part of the plot and is not ideal, is the insinuations of SA. Obviously, if Miharu would come to the prison alone, and she had a child in the prison, even though she's not being believed, if we were to believe her, that would insinuate something not very nice has happened, which is briefly mentioned in one of the earlier scenes where she's travelling down to prisoners on the floor below, grab her off the platform, and it looks like they're going to try and do horrible things to her, and then you start hearing them scream instead, because she's actually very good at what she does, which is she will kill anyone to try and get to her child. Imaguri also, I'm so not pronouncing her name right, also reveals that there are 200 levels in the pit. They live the rest of the month, and the next month, Gurung awakes on level 202. He also awakes to find that Imaguri is... He doesn't want to at first, but obviously 202, he hadn't got any food when he was, 70 levels up. He knows he's not going to eat. There's meat there that he could use. So he does eventually resort to cannibalising her flesh. While he does this reluctantly, he then starts having hallucinations of her as well as Trimagasi, both bothering him, both badgering on at him. In a way, it's turned from something that was kind of creepy to start off with to something that's now kind of providing him comfort, because it's just him. And, months at a time now, no cellmates, watching people die, having to eat people, it's not pleasant. On the 5th month, the next month, Goreng is assigned to level 6, and he has a new cellmate, Baharat, who we love, absolutely love Baharat, he's great. His one item is a rope, and he is going to try and climb levels to escape. 6 is the closest he's been, this is his chance. So he tries to climb to level 5, believes that the people on level 5 are trying to help him, but what they do is cut off his rope, so he loses the rope, doo-doo in his face, and laugh at him as he almost dies and has to be rescued by Goreng. Now estimating that there must be at least 250 levels, Goreng convinces Baharat to ride the platform down with him to try and distribute food more evenly amongst the floors so people aren't starving. They go down the first 50 and decide that they're not going to assign anyone food on the first 50 levels, telling them that they can eat tomorrow instead and that they have to prioritise people on the lower levels. They do have to attack and end a couple of protesters who become a little violent. And then on a lower level, Baharat recognises a man who recognises him and tells them you can't go about it so aggressively. You have to convey a message to the administration of the prison. So there's a panna cotta, still intact on the platform in a little glass dish, the perfect dessert. It's beautiful, and he says you need to protect this panna cotta. This has to make it all the way down and all the way back up to the administration and the chefs untouched. You have to send a message. If there's that many levels and this food is hitting the bottom and they're not having it, what is wrong with it? They continue going down, continue to have to try and explain and reason, beat off some people who are trying to protest. But as they continue to go down, he realises that the platform isn't stopping. And the reason it's not stopping is because they're going through level after level where there's just no one alive anymore. A frequent thing that people do is they'll jump, because there's just, the platform goes through the middle, so there's just a giant hole in the middle of all of the cells where you can kind of look down and look up. And obviously when the platform's not there, if you're on a level that you're not happy with, you just... And also, as they're going down, there's more scenes of cannibalism, just absolute depravity the further down in the pit they go. On a lower level, they find Miharu, who's being attacked. They do intervene, they get hurt in the process, and Miharu does end up dying regardless. Eventually, they go all the way down to levels 333, way past the 200 levels that Emiguri had told him about. And as they go down, the platform keeps going, stops. They look around, can't see anyone. And then they see a child, a little girl, hiding under one of the benches. It's Miharu's daughter. They get off the platform and it keeps going down. They've kind of missed their chance for the day, but obviously she takes priority. And at this point, there is no more food left on this platform. Scraps, if that. Bet there's nothing left. And she's clearly hungry. So Goreng convinces Baharat that they can change the message. Give her the panna cotta. We will send her back up on the platform. Miharu's dead at this point. So they think if they can bring the platform all the way to the bottom and send her back up, that will be the message to the administration that there's something wrong in the prison, that they need to readdress what they're doing. They fall asleep planning to do this the next day, and when they wake up in the morning, Baharat has died of blood loss from his injuries trying to help Miharu. When the platform arrives, Goreng gets on with the child and they ride it all the way down into the pit. Down in the pit, he sees one final hallucination of Trimagasi, who tells him this message requires no bearer. Get off the platform, she doesn't need you to go up with her, she's the message. So Goreng gets off of the platform and goes to stand with Trimagasi, and the pair of them watch as the platform shoots all the way back up to level 0. And that's the end of this film. So let's talk about a couple of the themes of this film. It's a thriller sci-fi. I mean, it's also definitely a horror. It's definitely got sci-fi and thriller elements. But I think the level of gore and the themes of this film, I mean, I would definitely classify them as horror. Talking of horror, the cannibal horror elements of this film. I love the cannibal subgenre of horror. I find it so fascinating. And this film, obviously, it's not about that, but the underlying themes of cannibalism through this film, the fact that they are forced to kind of go to this extent just to have something to eat, is just mad. There's also some elements of body horror, not in the sense of like things growing out of you, but like some of the stuff that's done to people in this film could almost constitute body horror in a way. The script for this film is really fantastic. It does a great job of conveying the story in a way that's understandable to you, especially because it's, you know, I'm English, it's not an English film. The dub of it's really good, but I could watch either way, they're both good. It also helps you understand the characters and their motivations, and each character is so vastly different. Trimagasi, despite the bad things he does in this film, is a little gem of a character. I absolutely love the way he's been portrayed in this film, and each character has such different reasons for being there, whether it's consensual or not. It's just wild to go on this kind of journey with them. And obviously there's issues in every prison system, and this isn't real, but obviously even in this fictional prison there's horrible things happening that the administration just don't want to hear about. They are doing what they think is right and providing enough food for everyone, knowing fully well that the hierarchy in a prison system wouldn't work like that. So talking about the plot and the concept of this film, a wonderful concept. I think the idea of having a vertical prison obviously would not be probably something you could do in real life and make work the way it did in the film. But what an interesting concept, because even just by building it in, you know, a tower and assigning them numbers, you are assigning them hierarchy whether you're meaning to or not. It sets such a perfect tone, which is light, and it's, you know, it's kind of light and breezy to begin with. Even though he's in there for having killed someone, he's a fun guy, and it's only when their situation becomes really dire that the tone becomes more sinister and dark. So at the higher levels it's light and playful, but at the kind of lowest, most depraved moments it's brutal. It makes you feel despair. I think the acting in this film was really well done as well. I think everyone did a fantastic job. Even the dog, man, all that stuff that happened with the dog is sad. Is sad. Obviously I don't condone any type of bad stuff with animals, even in horrors. It just makes me sad. But the action was so good, and like I said, all the characters were so different from each other that it really just all added to make it kind of more realistic. They were all individuals, they were all individual people and characters. I was a big fan of the comedic and like light-hearted moments in this film. Where there's dark, there's got to be light, as cringy as that is. And I think for a film which has such dark undertones throughout, which has such distressing and disturbing scenes and imagery, that there's still a use of comedy and light-hearted moments throughout. For example, when the boys are doing their naked yoga, or even during some of the hallucinations, some of them take on more of a jovial, like comical approach. The cinematography was kind of as you'd expect, not in a bad way. It's a dark film, it's got dark lighting, dreary lighting. The film is exactly that tone. The camera work and lighting match perfectly well, and the music adds to this like devilish tone of the film. Gore-wise, unexpectedly gory, this film. I was happily surprised the first time I watched it. I knew it was an 18, but I thought that was more because of the themes of the film. But by God, the gore in this film. I love cannibal horrors, and this was just the happiest surprise. From when Trimagasi was eating Goreng, feeding Goreng to himself, to Miharu killing the dog, depraved scenes in the levels below 200. It was unsettling and repulsive in the best ways, and I just double chef's kiss. I love the whole use of the one item rule for the prisoners, because you find out some later, I think one has something like a surfboard or a canoe, but most of them are things like weapons. I thought the dog, while obviously a bad idea in practice, it'd be nice to have a little companion in there. Goreng's book, obviously he's thinking keeping himself stimulated mentally, whereas Trimagasi is going to prison. He thought, that knife's going to do me well in there, and he was right. And also Baharat's rope. What a good idea, Baharat. Use of paranoia in this film as well. It just, the whole which floor are they going to wake up on next? Are they going to eat? Are they not? You kind of feel it with them, and you know, when they wake up on a lower level, you almost feel guilty. You haven't done anything, but you almost feel guilty that they're in that situation and that they're having to do these things to stay alive. Is the plot believable? Yes and no. Could there be a vertical prison with a floating platform descending a feast of food in real life? No, that's not something that would happen. No, I really doubt it. In a satirical way, talking about the corruption within prison systems, vertical or not, it is kind of believable. While the plot itself is, you know, unrealistic, the corruption is believable, and the kind of way that the hierarchy naturally falls, and that the people on the higher levels are happy to watch the people on the lower levels suffer. So yeah, in a way it's believable, but the plot's not realistic. Some pros and cons. Pros, it had a really intriguing plot. Like, I know I keep saying it, but the plot sold me on this one. Fantastic characterization, great gore, and a creepy undertone. Not massively predictable either, which I really like. There was a lot of things I didn't expect to happen, and that's always a good way to captivate me with a new horror. Cons, to be honest, I don't really have many. It was a really enjoyable watch. I think it did its job well. I don't think it tried to go overboard with the message. It did exactly what it tried to do, and it did it in a really lovely way, in the most disturbing way. Some similar films. It's kind of really unique, to be honest, in terms of plot. It kind of minutely reminds me of the sleep experiment, or the Russian sleep experiment, which was originally a creepypasta, but they kind of adapted it into a film. It has a sense of developing madness through Garang and what he's experiencing with his hallucinations and the trauma he's going through again and again in different ways. Hallucinations remind me a little bit of the sadness when you have Jim starting to develop the illness and he's seeing things. Obviously there's a lot of films that talk about hallucinations. And when we're talking about cannibals, by God, there are some fantastic cannibal films out there, but the way the cannibalism was done in this film and the gore that was involved with it does remind me of The Green Inferno, which is one of my favourite horror films of all time. And the way the gore is done and the finesse does remind me of The Green Inferno. Let's finish this on ratings. So Rotten Tomatoes gave this an 8 out of 10 and the audience gave it a 7 out of 10, which I think is really fair. I think it was a really good film. Obviously, for what it was a decent budget, but it's not like one of the biggest budget horror films. But I think it did a fantastic job for what it was. And just because it's become quite a little personal favourite of mine that I frequently rewatch despite all the dark themes, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So thank you guys so much for joining me for another one. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you've watched it, leave me a comment, tell me what you think, you know, if you agree or disagree with anything. And if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It's so worth watching. And if you like this video, please give me a like. Subscribe for more content to come. I'm so excited to keep talking about all of these fantastic films with you. Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Bye.